Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, was a landmark document adopted by the United Nations in 1948. Laying the foundation for global human rights, it was created in the aftermath of World War II to ensure that atrocities of that scale would never happen again. The UDHR outlines 30 articles detailing fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every human being, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. It remains one of the world's most translated and recognized documents, influencing constitutions, laws, and movements across nations. But human rights are not just ideals written on paper. They are promises, ones that have been broken, challenged, and reshaped over time. This documentary will explore the historical significance of the UDHR, its key principles, and the responsibilities that come with these rights. We will analyze how the UDHR has influenced the modern world, the ongoing struggle for human rights, and why its principles remain urgent today. More than just a declaration of entitlements, the UDHR reminds us of the shared duty to uphold these rights in our communities and daily lives. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was born out of humanity's darkest moments. World War II was not just a conflict, it was a humanitarian catastrophe that exposed the depths of cruelty nations could inflict upon each other. The Holocaust, or Shoah, saw the systemic murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime, alongside the targeted extermination of Romani people, disabled individuals, and political dissidents. But genocide was not unique to Europe. Imperialist and colonial atrocities had been committed globally, from the Nanjing massacre in China to the forced labor and famines under colonial rule in Africa and India. The world was determined to create a framework that would protect basic human rights and prevent such tragedies from happening again. This led to the United Nations forming a commission in 1946, chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, to draft a universal document outlining the fundamental right every individual deserves, regardless of nationality, race, or religion. In February-June 1947, the Commission debated the scope of human rights. They wondered if it should be a legally binding treaty or a declaration of principles. They settled on the latter to ensure wider global acceptance. In September 1947, Rene Cassin structured the first official draft, drawing from various national constitutions and philosophies. And earlier in 1948, the draft underwent revisions by the UN Economic and Social Council, with contributions from delegates worldwide, including Charles Malik, Peng Chang, and John Humphrey. On November 1948, the final draft was presented to the UN General Assembly for debate. Intense discussions arose over specific rights, particularly religious freedoms and economic rights. Finally, on December 10, 1948, the UN General Assembly in Paris adopted the UDHR. 48 countries voted in favor, none opposed, but 8 abstained. Most notably, the Soviet Union, South Africa, and Saudi Arabia, citing conflicts with their political or religious ideologies. Several individuals played pivotal roles in creating the UDHR. Eleanor Roosevelt, as the chair of the drafting committee, was a driving force behind the declaration, ensuring it reflected the universal values of dignity and freedom. Rene Cassin, a French jurist, is often referred to as the father of the Declaration for his significant contributions to its structure and language. Charles Malik, a philosopher and diplomat from Lebanon, brought a philosophical depth to the discussions, emphasizing moral and cultural perspectives. Peng Chang, a Chinese philosopher, provided Confucian perspectives, ensuring that the document embraced not only Western ideals but also Eastern moral traditions. Despite its imperfections, the UDHR became a milestone, marking the first time nations collectively recognized human rights as universal and inalienable. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights has 30 articles, each establishing basic rights and freedoms that apply to everyone. These rights cover civil, political, economic, social, and cultural aspects of life, aiming to ensure dignity, equality, and justice for all. Articles 1 through 5 declare that every human being is born free and equal. This section guarantees life, liberty, and protection from torture and slavery. Articles 6 and 7 ensure that everyone is recognized as a person and given equal protection before the law. Articles 8 through 11 outline fair trial rights, protect against arbitrary arrests, and ensure that no one is punished unfairly. Articles 12 through 14 ensure privacy and freedom of movement and allow people to seek asylum in other countries. Articles 15 through 17 cover nationality, the right to start a family, and the right to own property, while Articles 18 and 19 protect freedom of thought, religion, and expression. Articles 20 and 21 ensure the right to peacefully assemble and to participate in your country's government. Articles 22 through 25 focus on the right to social security, fair working conditions, and an adequate standard of living. Article 26 emphasizes education's role in promoting peace, and Article 27 protects the right to participate in cultural life and benefit from scientific advancements. Articles 28 through 30, collective responsibility. Finally, the last two articles focus on our shared responsibilities. Article 28 calls for a global system that supports human rights, while Articles 29 and 30 remind us that upholding these rights is a duty shared by everyone, individual, communities, and nations alike. The UDHR was not just a symbolic gesture, it laid the groundwork for international human rights law. Treaties such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights emerged from its principles, shaping national constitutions and legal systems worldwide. Human rights organizations like Amnesty International and the United Nations Human Rights Council actively hold governments accountable using the UDHR as their foundations. But rights come with responsibilities. The UDHR reminds us that human dignity is not just something we demand, it's something we must uphold in our communities. If we expect freedom of speech, we must respect the speech of others. If we want equality, we must challenge discrimination where we see it. These principles are the backbone of movements for justice across the world, from the civil rights movement in the US to ongoing protests today. Despite its influence, human rights violations continue across the world and persist at an alarming rate. The UDHR emerged from the ashes of the Holocaust, yet mass atrocities continue. In Palestine, over 50,000 people have been killed and 2.1 million displaced, including thousands of children, entire families wiped out, hospitals bombed, and humanitarian aid blocked, violating Articles 3, 5, and 25 of the UDHR, which protect the rights to life, security, and freedom from inhumane treatment. However, many argue that this number is inaccurate, as tens or even hundreds of thousands may be trapped and killed under the rubble. The UDHR declares the right to life, freedom from torture, and access to necessities, yet these rights are being stripped from millions, just as they were in Nazi concentration camps, although it was due to these camps that UDHR was created. In Sudan, ethnic groups are targeted for exterminations, with villages being burned to the ground and systemic rape used as a weapon of war. Direct violations of Articles 3, 5, and 6, which uphold the right to life and dignity. The Rohingya crisis in Myanmar sees thousands of Muslims stateless and subjected to mass killings, violating Articles 14 and 15, which ensure the right to nationality and asylum. Meanwhile, the United States bombing campaign in Yemen has resulted in tens of thousands of civilian casualties, infrastructure destruction, and worsening humanitarian crisis, violating Articles 3, 5, and 25, which emphasize the right to life, protection from inhumane treatment, and basic living standards. Freedom of speech and assembly are under attack worldwide. In Iran, women face imprisonment and execution for protesting oppressive laws. In China, Uyghur Muslims are detained in so-called reduction camps. In Russia, political opponents and journalists are imprisoned or assassinated, violating Articles 19 and 21, which guarantee free expression and participation in government. In North Korea, citizens are denied access to information, expression, and movement, violating Articles 9, 13, and 19. Even in democratic nations, journalists are attacked, surveillance is expanded, and peaceful protests are violently suppressed, showing that no country is immune to human rights violations. Article 25 of the UDHR states that everyone has the right to an adequate standard of living, yet today over 700 million people live in extreme poverty. Forced labor in Qatar's construction industry for the World Cup, sweatshops in Bangladesh's garment factories, and child labor in Congo's cobalt mines all violate Articles 4, 23, and 24, which guarantee freedom from forced labor and the right to fair wages. Corporate greed, climate change, and political corruption continue to deny people access to basic necessities, violating fundamental economic and social rights. These are not just statistics, they prove that human rights are not guaranteed, they must be fought for. The UDHR may have been written in 1948, but its relevance has never been more urgent. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is more than words. It's a promise of dignity, equality, and freedom for all. But that promise has been broken time and time again. Genocide, oppression, and injustice still exist. The UDHR only lives if we live it. Upholding human rights is a duty we all share. So what can you do? Start by staying informed. Speak out. Support human rights groups. Hold leaders accountable. Even the smallest action matters because change starts with you. The UDHR is a reminder of what we can achieve when we stand together. Let's honor its legacy by taking action today. Because when we fight for human rights, we're not just changing the world, we're building a better future for all.